back to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm your host, Chris Matthew. Today my guest is Melissa Dawn. First, check out our new affiliate, Brainsupreme. Brainsupreme contains the highest quality ingredients to start your microdosing journey guaranteed. To learn more, check out their website, brainsupreme.co. If you visit brainsupreme.co/discount/FKN15, the link is also right in the description, you're going to get 15% off the entire order. You can also watch my recent episode with Brainsupreme founder Adam Shell to find out more about starting your microdose journey to greatness today. If you'd like to help support Forbidden Knowledge News, you can use links in the description. We have our film fundraiser that is still going on. You can also watch the Forbidden documentary, Occult Louisiana, available on Tubi, Roku channel, and multiple streaming platforms. Also, get yourself a Rokfin premium membership at rokfin.com/FKN+. Finally, we are booking guests for October. If you have suggestions or you'd like to be a guest, email me, forbiddenknowledgenews@gmail.com. Today I want to welcome back to the show Melissa Dawn. She has spent her life collecting ghostly folklore and started writing and making e-zines for an online blog, The Curious Fortean, in 2015. She now does the Ghostly Archives podcast, which aims to record, write, and preserve ghostly folklore tales from around the world. Melissa, welcome back. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks so much for coming back. This is going to be a fun conversation. You have been looking into the Belezian Grove, and as I told you before the show, I've heard briefly about this. I'm not sure too much about the history, but according to Wikipedia, the Belezian Grove is an elite invitation-only American women's social club located in New York City, modeled after the San Francisco-based Bohemian Club. The Belezian Grove was formed to duplicate for women how the quote-unquote old boys network supported one another. And again, this is according to Wikipedia. The Belezian Grove meets annually in Belize or similar Central American locations. They also meet in New York and other cities for different activities. And this is just your basic mainstream information. So I'm looking forward to hearing what you've been looking into about this, as well as your insights into some other connections that we were talking about before, like Futurism and how this ties into everything. Before we get into any of this, though, it's been a while since you've been on. Remind the audience a little bit about yourself and your show.
Well, my show is Gen X News, and basically I cover news, what's happening, a lot of conspiracy theories, and basically stuff from a Gen Xer point of view. I mean, I think Gen X, we're kind of in this special place where we might remember less technology and less modernity, but we're submerged in modernity as well, where we've learned all the computer tech. So I thought, well, very few, millennials and Gen Zs know what, even remember before the internet and stuff. So I always kind of come at it from that perspective of an older generation that's maturing, and giving my take on it. There's lots of Gen Zs on TikTok and stuff. So I was like, I want to put something out. And when I came to United States, I took a hiatus from podcasting for a while because I was getting things organized. And I'm like, what am I going to do? I had done interviewing people on the occult and folklore and ghosts. And I thought, that's limiting. And so something like Gen X News, you're kind of dealing with things that are alive and things that are happening in the now, but it can go anywhere. So it's genxonx.com is the website. And so I try to stream Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays live so anyone can join. And all the links are on my website.
Are you not doing the Ghostly Archives anymore?
There's a website there. There's a website, a free website that's still standing with my blogs. I kept that living and alive, but I'm not doing that as the actual podcast. I switched everything. I mean, ghosts is something I can bring up. Like all of October, we're having spooky stuff on Gen X. So it's certainly something that I can still cover because it falls under a vast umbrella. but it's kind of hard to keep, for me anyways, to keep talking about folklore and ghosts just
There's a lot
for a
going on.
podcast. It feels
Yeah.
limiting. It feels limiting. And I talk so much about news and psychology, the, spirituality, kind of the human soul, what's happening in our world, that I just had to do something that was a bigger umbrella.
Let's talk about the Belezian Grove. What got you interested in looking into this?
I didn't even know existed. It was brought up to me months and months ago about some women's club, and I started to look into it, and we did a show on it. And it's just because of all the hype about Bohemian Grove. And I thought, well, yeah, I wanted to kind of see what it was about. And no one was talking about it. So I thought, well, let's do a show on it. So we did a show on it. It was a little choppy. It was a little rough. We didn't know where we were going. And I didn't have a lot of information about it because what's out there is very
Limited.
what's like CEO corporate
Approved, yes.
looking, they're approved what the narrative of what
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
about. So you kind of have to start looking at that, looking at who's involved and looking at their work and what they do and where they're going and what their beliefs are and what their goals are, and kind of interpret yourself what you if you think they're good or not.
So tell us a little bit about what
And
you learned about.
one of their Well, one of the Belezian Grove is elite women. It's different from the Bohemian Grove. It was created, like you said, in 2001, but they only allow like 115 to 125 members. So you're not going to have 5 justices in there. You're not going to have a whole bunch of actors. They're like one of each kind of field. They're very limited on members. It's more exclusive than Bohemian Grove. And one of their big goals, is to make a female president.
Interesting.
So I'm not sure if they were involved with Hillary. I'm not sure. I can't say whether or not they're involved in this election cycle, but it's one of their big goals is to have a female be president. They're kind of like a think tank,
Right.
And except for these are really wealthy people. They are a lot of CEOs, people who are in media. Beyonce is supposed to be involved in this. Sonia Sotomayor was in it, but she left it because she had to disclose when she became a justice or whatever. She had to disclose that she was in it, and then there was people didn't like that. But they have a lot of pretty words about what they do, but what it looks like they have different subgroups like Tara and Naomi, and they're like these cohort groups, sister groups, where they literally say we're focused on next generations of global leaders. They literally sound like the World Economic Forum.
Right.
And they're futurists. They believe in some kind of cold, distant future that is disconnected from the past.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that. What did you find out about futurism?
Well, futurism really is it's like a concept that's coming out of World War One for the most part. The way these guys are approaching it, there's different formations, but I think the way these guys are approaching it, and let me just make sure I get this right. There's like a Christian kind of version of it, but this one seems to have spouted from Italian and Russian futurists. They were like probably Bolshevik kind of revolutionaries, thinking they're looking at the way the system was at the time with royal families and thinking we don't need this history, we don't need any of this stuff. We need to reject our history, we need to reject all the past, and we need to embrace speed, technology, and they have no problem doing that through violent change. And a lot of these started in the 1920s and the 1930s, these kind of radical movements that sought to basically change the face of society wherever they were. And so if you're a futurist, they sugarcoat it. Like they make like these nice, computer commercials where we're all going to be one. They're going to believe in stuff like women, shouldn't be like, they're going to believe in stuff like probably having babies in pods, like, like the past is dirty, like having babies is horrible. That's horrible to women, to have to make them be pregnant and have babies. Something's the most natural, the most, you're a creator through your body. They're going to look at it like that because they're women who want power and to achieve goals, and they have these really, it's ideological, so it's never going to fit with nature. It's never going to fit with how reality really is. It's going to be this sort of white brushing of what can be, unburdened by what was, that kind of
Yeah, it fits the
crap.
transhuman movement as well as all the other quote-unquote ideologies that have been making their way to the forefront over the past few years. Based on what we're experiencing, it seems like an opportunistic time for them to really push these ideologies on people, but it doesn't seem to be working the way that they ideally would like it to be rolling out. I don't think people are aligning with a lot of the stuff right now. The origin of these ideas comes from these think tanks and secret societies. It's most likely just multi-generational mind control and trauma that keeps the psychotic nature of this going on. But what do you think?
Well, I think it starts with the enlightenment and the rejection of God and the replacement of yourself as God, which is technology driven. And I'm not against technology, by the way. It makes our lives easier, but I think that's rooted honestly in trauma, where humans are trying to control their environment to make life easier for them, because life's pretty harsh, especially in the past. And maybe these futurists see the past as such a gritty, hard, horrible time, and that they don't want, they'd rather do away with it and just clear it out. I think it's embedded in a human trauma personally. And I mean, Christians might say it's Satan, it's evil, and I don't disagree that, but I think the more we're surrounded and the older generations die that were actually in the past, the closer we get to this totally disconnection from the past. And when we have something like the internet where they can just wipe things clean and control the information that's out there, I mean, that's worse than book burning.
Well, this control of information and erasing of information has been going on for decades. It just seems like it's ramped up over the past few years. The ease of access that we have to information through the internet, it seems like it was a double-edged sword for whatever the power structure was trying to roll out, and now they're just going in there and flat out erasing information and changing our history as we speak.
Well, and I think a lot of the information is actually actually encoded in us, because we're passing on our DNA through generations and generations. I think that's the funny part, is it's encoding within human beings, like certain memories. Like I think you can possibly have memories or certain habits and certain behaviors and certain tendencies to like things that actually are from your DNA and encoded in the past in certain behaviors. And I find it interesting that they kind of want to mess with DNA and all that kind of technology. Like they're getting it at that level. I mean, I ultimately think it means that they destroy themselves, although they think they have ultimate control of everything. But the thing about this whole Belezian Grove stuff that's interesting is it's actually very anti-democratic too, because they have goals and they're going to have their goals be met. So to hell with who the people want to vote for and what the people want. We're going to get a female in, we're going to do this, we're going to have this for president. So it's anti-history, it's anti-civilization, it's anti-God, and it's anti-democratic. And it's very manipulative and cold. You can just feel the coldness in their website. And there's nothing, like you said, it's anti-human. It's very, And you got to wonder what the elite's made out of or what deals they've made behind the scenes, really. I mean, it's so cold and calculated. Like, who would want to erase their genetic history?
Well, there's a few different thoughts on the spiritual implications of this. Many believe that there is a hidden hand religion that they are following, maybe some sort of cult of Mithras or something older than what we understand as Satanism. And then there's another school of thought that these are complete atheists and they hide behind religion, they hide behind theological beliefs, and they use that for control and fear tactics. What do you think?
Absolutely. I think a lot of these people are actually tied to sort of like a multi-god thing, not like a Christian God for sure. And I think even Christianity is, you could say it's hard to say because Christianity, took over paganism and infiltrated. And I mean, it's hard to separate it out. It's so sludgy, it's so mucky, but I think these kind of groups really, I think the whole point is that they think they're the gods, that humans are the god. That humans,
well, we have to look at the Vatican, the reality
humans,
of what we understand and know about that institution, and we can say that, yes, Catholicism has 100% been infiltrated by an evil force. To what extent Christianity, just like you said, it's hard to tell. Our history has been so distorted and inverted that all theological systems are suspect at this point, and you have to wonder what has been altered or inserted or even made up just to gain power and control.
Yeah, and I think the biggest key or hint to that is whatever's on television. Radio was influential. They've always had propaganda, but once TV came into our houses, it was it was game over. It looks like entertainment, but it was like the soft screen, that we have on. Some people have their TV on 24/7. And then from TV, it's just gone into other different forms. There was film, there was movies, but movies weren't in your house 24/7. You didn't show up from work and just turn it on and veg out. And now it's on your phone everywhere. So anything that their major structures that they're controlling, I think that is the key where the fake narrative is. That might be sprinkled with truth, but it's going to be wrapped up in their story and how they see the world. Technology is the future. This is the key, or, whatever narratives they're doing, you're going to find it in these mainstream outlets. It's why 10 years ago, I turned it off because I felt like I was paying for crap. It wasn't interesting. It wasn't good, but so many people are hypnotized by it. So many people, they've gone from cradle, they'll go from cradle to grave with it. And they think it's the truth. And I'm always astounded at how people don't have the curiosity to dig beneath. They just don't. And I always have. And that might be a personality type. And most people just want to consume. And that's the thing it's made us. They don't want us to be creators. They don't want us to be in charge. They just want us to be consumers of their garbage. Whether it's food, media, clothing, fashion, cars, propaganda, ideologies, whatever's trendy. And that's the biggest problem of these futurists in Belezian Grove is there's no morality. It changes, it switches, it changes whatever's in. There's no sense of connection to your ancestors.
Yeah, it ties into erasing our history as well, because their ideologies to look towards the future at all costs, erase our view of the past, and look what's happening.
Yeah, there's only now. And you remember Oprah Winfrey pushed the power of now? It's true that we only live in the now. And that, yes, future and past are concepts and they're memories, but it is also true that we have a past and we existed in other forms and we have ancestors and we have different ties. All of time may be illusion, maybe perhaps, it's all one thing, but that's not what they're getting at. They want us to always be focused in the moment and focused on them and their narrative and their line. They don't want us interested in the real history, the real stories, different narratives of different wars or different people or who's really pushing narratives. They just want us to believe this really cotton candy version. Yep. And I always say it's like a female form of propaganda. It's not that masculine march out the armies kind of rip it all up right now. There's a very manipulative, passive aggressive, we're being your mama, but we're never going to let you be an adult. We're just going to keep devouring your soul to the end of time and pretend we're taking care of you kind of energy out there. And I think Belezian Grove emulates that.
That is very interesting, and that leads to what we were talking about before we got started. You just mentioned that they want us to be consuming constantly. You also mentioned the devouring mother. Talk a little bit about this concept, because it makes sense what we're seeing now. They are pushing this cackling female president who is
VP.
She's
VP,
she is the hopeful president, but if you look at everything her party and herself stands for and everything that has unfolded over the past few years, it has a very anti-human and dark tone behind it. And it's not to say that the other side isn't playing its theatrical role to this, which I completely believe is happening, but there is this feminine push for the future, for what is happening, but to a seeming dark degree.
Yeah, so the devouring mother is an archetype. I'm not a fan of Freud. I think Freud was a weirdo. Yeah. I more look at Jung, he's a good one. It's an archetype in psychology, and it's literally a narcissistic mother who will not allow her children to grow up and leave because she devours them and their energy because she's unable to. And she's probably got some kind of trauma and she's unable to form relationships or have a good marriage or whatever of her own. So she literally makes her children handicapped and attached to her so they never leave, even when they're 20, 30, 40, 50. She consumes them. They don't get to have a personality of their own or thoughts or individuation. Everything they do must be done to serve her and her real dysfunctional outlook. That's literally what a devouring mother is. If you look at the relationship between a mother, a lot of times it happens with a mother and son. It can happen between a mother and daughter, but it is a very unhealthy female. And often
it's like this toxic feminism that has manifested over the years, right?
Yeah, except for those feminists don't have children a lot of times, or they don't form marriages, and they take their motherly needs that have been twisted and warped because they hate men. They take that out and they take it and make it political, and they try to make us their children, and they don't even have an ounce of motherly love or empathy. There's a lack of caring and self-sacrifice and letting you go. So, like, I have a son. I don't sit there. He's an adult in university. He's doing his own thing. I don't make his life about my life. I would never guilt him not to do his own thing or tell him he has to do it my way or, infiltrate or interfere in his relationships or anything like that. That time's over. I'm instructing him, as a child. Devouring mothers will want to keep you permanently 2 or 3 years old. And they literally, like, I don't want to, I know the word, people may not like it, but they keep you retarded emotionally and mentally. And that's look at our society. They want us stupid, dumbed down, devouring Megan the Stallion crap and twerking and being dumb. And then so they can shovel, we'll pay this for you. We'll do this. They're just trying to throw stuff at you, free stuff, instead of doing something like, okay, we want to make more jobs so you can work and be more independent. We'll lower the taxes so you have this and this. We'll do less government. We'll do less interference, and we'll bring economy in. And you guys, you'll have to sort it out and be your own person. That would be the appropriate. But females who get into politics tend to be like this nagging mother, and they're awful at it. And they're taking, for some reason, it feels like they are, they're nannying people who want to be left alone and independent. And
this, I think, also seems to tie in with the attack on the divine feminine and the attack on family and family values. What we're seeing with the transhuman movement as well. One of the most disturbing trends that I've noticed is how many celebrity children are transsexual, and it's not even their own decision. It seems like their parents are deciding for them at a very young age what sex they're going to be. And that's just a small piece of this problem of the attack on the divine feminine, because it's also an attack on the divine masculine. But what they're doing is they're pushing this dark feminism, this inverted feminism on the public, and it's an attempt to destroy families.
It is. And again, most of these actresses, most women, and I'm not going to say all, but many women who are big in Hollywood, they've had to do some crazy stuff to get there. We won't get into that, but they have personality disorders. They do. They're not stable people. They are going with whatever's trendy. So they don't even have a set personality and morals. They just hop from thing to thing. So right now, it's cool to make your kid be a different gender. And this, again, is playing God. This is denying what God has said. You are a male, you are a female, and saying, no, we get to construct who we are.
Yes.
And we get to say what we are doing. And the family's not important. Well, it is. Yours is just a little tad dysfunctional, ladies, but it's a form of brainwashing and manipulation that I don't think you could ever forgive someone for doing. You know, it'd be like, it's like you hear stories of, even long time ago, it's very rare, that there was a mother who wanted a daughter, but she made her son dress up in girly clothes. You hear those kind of stories, but they're always presented as crazy woman, crazy person. It's there in the history. The actor Peter Cushing, his mother used to kind of make him dress in girly stuff when he was little. That's
made a movie called Psycho about a dude's mom who made him dress like a girl, and then he started murdering people.
Yeah, you are denying who your child really is. Part of their gender as they're born in is part of who they are. Even if they're a male and they're a little bit effeminate, it doesn't matter. Let them, like my son wanted to dress up as a zombie princess when he was in grade 6 or 7 for Halloween. I let him do it. Then make a big guff about it. Everybody's like, oh my God, what if your kid's trans or something? I'm like, he's not. He just wants to have fun for Halloween. Everyone was freaking out. I let him do it. The next year it was meat potato boy. Like that was done. It was just for Halloween. Could you imagine if I flipped out and started buying him dresses and wigs all the time? Like what the hell? Right. That would be crazy. Yeah. But people go with it. Their kid, their little 1-year-old boy wants to play with Barbie, and that's it. Gender reassignment surgery. These are sick women who are really mentally ill, and they're terrible mothers. They're not good mothers. They have no maternal wisdom. They're cut off because they're so locked in modernity. They're so locked in the now. They're cut off from their mother wisdom from all the past generations. They don't have it. It's not there. It's gone. And they think, ew, the past generations are so ignorant and dumb because they didn't have the technology, and they're cutting themselves off from wisdom and the traditional ways.
Right. They're pushing all these things, but everyone I talk to, everyone I know is rejecting all these ideologies and not participating, not watching the Hollywood crap that's coming out that's just propaganda, that is just trying to prop up some of this nonsense. It's these small pockets. It's these people in Hollywood, and it's a very small amount of people that the media portrays it as a large movement, so that we think that it's more acceptable than it is.
I think we have to remember who they're targeting, and they're not necessarily targeting you and me. They're targeting Gen Z and Gen Alpha.
Right.
I think we have to remember that. They're the ones on TikTok participating in this stuff. I raised my son very meat and potato, so I don't see him doing a lot of this stuff. So they're not all doing it, but that's who they're targeting, because those are the people who have no clue what 1960 was like or 1940 was like. I don't know, but I know because I used to talk to my grandmother and get stories told to me. They don't even know that anymore, and we're not telling them it because we're so busy. We're not handing the stories, and nobody's interested. And so they're cutting them off from their past and their history. We used to do this, the native cultures. I'll get back into how weird Belezian Grove is and their whole thing, but native cultures had orality. They didn't write everything down structurally like a little like to have everything, like we write things down as data. We're really into data and having everything exact. When native cultures and a lot of like the pagan cultures had orality, they didn't write things down. They sat in a circle and they told their stories, and they handed them down from generation to generation. It wasn't some exact description. It was handing traditions down, and they did it through telling stories. And it did involve technology. And that's so different than what we're doing now. And because of the modernity and the trying to kill the past, it's none of these kids know. And that's who they're targeting. If we sat down and went camping and turned all the technology off all the time, and we told stories about our past and our family, or Grandpa Joe did this or something, we might actually revive it. That's telling stories is so important. And not just the storybooks that the school or the publishers put out, like family stories, old ghost stories, things that nobody knows. That's special to your family. I think that's really important.
And you look at the events, especially since 2020, it seems to have an acceleration factor. There used to be a very slow rollout of some of these agendas that shift society, some of these culture creation agendas. And it used to seem like they would take their time implementing and infiltrating different groups to get the collective moving in a certain direction. Well, after 2020, it seems like there has been something that caused an acceleration in these agendas, and I think there's a lot of mistakes being made, and I don't think people are ready for the acceleration and are pushing against it.
Well, when they rolled out the pandemic to get a certain president out, they overplayed their hand for a lot of people. I mean, I personally think 9/11 should have made a lot of people suspicious, but the narrative was good enough. You didn't have the YouTubes yet and that social media apps yet. I was super suspicious in 9/11. And I'm still learning stuff now that I didn't know about the true narrative, but they really played their hand at that pandemic, and there's people who still fell for it and still believe it and are still wearing masks and they're still terrified, but they really overplayed their hand because they were behind on their little goals. And so when you overplay your hand and you go too fast, people feel it faster. They're like, what the heck?
Right. Yeah.
It gets too hot. It gets too hot in the pot.
Now, I know you want to go back to the Belezian Grove, and we're talking about Hollywood earlier. I think you mentioned to me before we got started that Beyonce is a member of this.
She is. And I believe she did some music videos on the original podcast we did. We showed some video footage of some of her creepy stuff, like the music and the stuff that they're doing. And I find it interesting that they choose to, even though they do have some events here in the United States, they have some meetings. They have one coming up September 26th or something like that. I find it interesting that they choose to go to South America. And with all the child trafficking, with all the stuff we know about laws, I'm not sure what the laws are like in Belize, but I'm sure they can get away with a lot more there than they can get away with here in America. So I find it suspicious that one of their biggest meeting places is in Belize or in other places in South America. It just reminds me of Oprah sending people to John of God.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
know, I'm always suspicious when people start going down to South America for stuff. I don't have the video on me, but Beyonce has some really crazy satanic symbolism in her music videos of late. And the video we played, I think it might have been from 2017 or something. It wasn't like right now, right recent, but it's creepy. And there was a lot of satanic stuff rolled out in music videos and in culture. And I think they overplayed that because I think people start going, "What? What the heck? What the heck is this?" You know? And it's interesting though that they try to market it. Same with Oprah and her girl school. They try to market it as spirituality, but there's this really dark undertone. Like with John of God, he's supposed to be this healer and psychic surgery and all this stuff. And here he is running farms of women and getting them to breed and selling babies and murdering them and raping people, and all sorts of crazy was going on with John of God because he's a psychopath. And they're all these media institutions, including Oprah, are presenting him as this pious spiritual healer. And I just get the same feeling when I look at these people going down to Belize and operating in different parts of the world where they are unbound by US law.
Now, is there anything else that this group may be involved with? Did you find anything about any specific activities that go on during these events?
Well, it's very secretive. They have, let me see if I can see on their website here. They have they talk about spirituality. An enlightened one. They have a group called Tara. Tara is the light one, a female Buddha who has attained the highest wisdom, capability, and compassion. So they want super elite women who are highly successful in their fields. But I don't know. It's so quiet about some of the activities that they do. And it seems like their big mission statement is getting influential women together to make decisions about how the future of the world, including the president of the United States. We don't know anything because it's high security. We don't have any footage of someone going in like Belezian Grove. We don't have any bonfires or sacrifice to a god. But this whole Tara group, I mean, they obviously believe in some kind of Buddha, enlightened goddess figure. And they are literally attributing that to their CEO mindset. They're enlightened because they see the future and they want this grand future. It's the same ideology. And they go highest wisdom, capability, compassion. And I always used to say that anytime you hear people speak too much like this, where they're high, you should be suspicious. You should dig a little bit more, because these are people who run massive corporations. They work for corporations. Never forget that. The bottom line for corporations is what? Money, numbers. Right. It's not people. It's not your ancestors. It's not what's the best for the company. It's what's best for the bottom line, the money for their corporations. And, you know, I don't necessarily think all these women think, well, I'm going to do evil stuff. I just think it's like a mind virus that's gotten hold of people. And they just are like, yeah, you have to work yourself to death and be this global leader and be an elite. And I actually don't think they're as intelligent as they think they are. There's a lot of propagandists. Like, you would definitely want someone like Beyonce being involved. And I only can find that their objective is this sort of, you know, Buddhist-like female woman as a president. And that just sounds so bizarre.
Well, it's very interesting.
It's definitely not a Christian objective.
Yeah, and when you look at the events that's unfolding now with our election, we have a female candidate. You mentioned earlier that it seems like they are overplaying their hands in some ways. I'd love to get your insights into this. is the overall direction that we have been headed over the past few years. And I'm not talking about where they want to lead us, but where the collective conscious really lies at this moment. And it's difficult to tell. Most of our interactions are done online through platforms like this. And when we do interact with people, it's our friends and family, especially in the real world when we interact with people. It may be difficult to gauge how much the collective is aware of the corrupt state of our reality. Lots seems to have changed since 2020. A lot of people seem to be more aware of the corrupt nature of our systems and politics and everything that's happening. But we do have a lot of people that I think are still reliant on the outcome of a political election in a sense that they believe it's going to make a difference in their lives and it's going to change anything. I'm of the belief that it is all theater, that it's all two wings of the same bird, that no matter who we put into that office, the overall outcome is not decided by that individual. There are greater powers that are pulling the strings here, and what we're witnessing is just a level of theater to make us believe that things that we have a level of control here and that things may turn out one way or the other. But this year has gotten very interesting with the level of theater that's unfolded, the theological implications that have crept in, and the two candidates that we have. There's also levels of occult symbolism on both sides of each campaign, high strangeness with Trump's background, Tesla and time travel, information being brought forward from the past. So it's insanity right now what we're dealing with. And the conspiratorial waters have been muddied. I think that they lost control of the internet a long time ago, and they're just flooding it with insanity right now. So it's hard to tell what is really going on.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts on the madness we're experiencing right now?
Well, they're definitely flooding the internet with bots and BS and crazy stuff. That's their biggest thing. But I think what I'm seeing and what I'm sensing in terms of, I think they want this big global system. The globalists, it's too big. Humans can't relate on this scale. They'll fall through the cracks. You know, it's such a big machine. They don't care if they have to mow down thousands of people to get something done. It will affect us, people's decisions, because if someone wants to tax unrealized gains, you're screwed. You can't make money. I think, you know, they want to trash America, get rid of it, so it's more globalist. But I think what's happening right under their nose, and they're too stupid to realize it, is even the two sides, MAGA versus this, they're breaking apart into smaller groups. And I see it all over. I see people breaking apart. It's like even within MAGA, you'll have people that are anti one country and pro this war, not this war. Same with the left. I think there's going to be, I think as things go along, you'll see. And I think this is, maybe they intend this, but this is what happens when you start crazy stuff and you're very divided. It keeps breaking apart into smaller radical groups. Because humans cannot stand things. We're very tribal people. We're not meant to be in massive groups. The biggest I think we can handle is a nation. And even that's hard. So the internet, by its nature, has us in smaller and smaller groups. And how that will play out in physical reality, I don't know. But I don't see the global thing being able to happen, especially if they do stuff like they turn the internet off to control things. Well, then people aren't being influenced by the internet. Yeah, I think the internet has had an effect of making smaller and smaller groups in a digital manner.
Right.
Even though we're still United States and England and whatever, it's made smaller extreme factions of groups like Reuters and you think you're cohesive, but it's because we're expressing ideas.
All right, the internet gremlins did not like what you were saying. We got kicked off for a bit.
Obviously.
But we're back. You were talking a little bit about your thoughts on what is unfolding now, the political climate, the insanity, the misinformation.
Yeah, and I was saying like it's their goals are very ambitious. It's global. It's getting too big and humans can't handle it. They are creating the chaos, by the way. I mean, they really are, because in that chaos, they can confuse everybody because there's so many of us that people won't catch on that it's a constructed chaos, right? And so they're doing this and they're breaking things down because they want to build back better, as they say. They want to replace it with a total global system, but it's not working because, like you said, people are aware and people just can't handle this to this level. And I mean, what they want to do is, not have people produce and do it in labs and reduce population in their ignorance and their ideology. This could mean the end of human civilization in total. Like, they could destroy everything if they're destroying birth rates, fertility, doing weird experiments on everybody. I think you can only tell a lie for so long and do crazy for so long before the truth comes out. Mm. And once people know the truth, I mean, people see the truth as always, a good thing, but sometimes the truth rips everything apart and destroys a structure that you thought was real. Like, people might still think there's a democratic political system out there. And the truth can literally, if you find out the truth about your marriage that wasn't as good, what happens is you have a story of your narrative and your history, and it's like pulling the rug from underneath you. And then you have to reassess who you are, where you are, what are you doing? And I think this is happening. Like, people are like reassessing and trying to see where they belong or what's going on. And it's going to be devastating for a lot of people because they don't have any tie to any ancestor. They don't have any grounding to the past. That the past and your ancestors and your family give you that grounding. And I just don't see globalism working entirely. There's too many things that can go wrong in a big system. There's too many things that can happen with technology. It is not a perfect system that doesn't go wrong.
It seems like we're being presented with the furthest extremes from each side of the political spectrum, the most extreme ideologies, but the problem is if you don't align with them and you don't form those little breakaway groups that you were just talking about, you don't join in with the extremes of either side, you become the enemy, you become the target right now, because there's this push to get people into these camps that are as far away from each other as possible. In the bigger picture, both of these extremes have the same overall effect and will lead us down the same road.
Yeah. It was like communism or Bolsheviks or, versus Nazis. Everyone's like, they're so different. I'm like, no, good Lord, they couldn't be more the same.
Now, you recently moved,
they're like,
recently moved from Canada to the United States, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was there much of a culture shock for you? How are you really adjusting to things?
So the culture shock is I live in Utah, and there's a lot of Mormons here.
Oh, man.
I know you guys were at Utah a while ago. For me, it wasn't a massive culture shock. If I had to move to somewhere like England, I wouldn't have liked that. I lived on the West Coast. I was very fortunate to live in a very on an island that was super gorgeous. Lots of mountains and ocean. It's a lot drier here. It's like physiologically, it's been hard that way. But the politics on the West Coast, I just didn't. Yeah, there are people, they pretend they're these woke, really nice, that they care about the environment, and they were just, I'd try to get involved in helping groups, and they were just parasitically users, abusers, bullies. They would harass you in messages to push their stuff, and then they come out going, "Kumbaya." And I was like, and where I lived used to be not like that 30 years ago, and it was more and more like that. I think we're more and more, our society, as we get with technology too, people are getting more and more
Yep.
narcissistic because they're not humble. They're once again, they're not attached to their ancestors that lived a hardy life. They're totally detached from it. They're attached to Apple. They're attached to um the latest video game. They're attached to some kind of sneaker or some kind of Taylor Swift. They're not attached to their grandmother singing a lullaby to them. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? I think that makes us more narcissistic.
Now, no matter what we think about the level of theater and politics, the outcome of the upcoming election is going to affect each and every one of our lives to some degree or another, whether we pay attention to it or not. And it seems like it's a very pivotal point in our human history, the next step that we take as a collective and how we react to whatever is going to unfold. Any thoughts on where we could go with either candidate, with either direction that we could head in?
Well, I think because Kamala is, she's just a horrible person in through her character, her everything, and everything they're constructing about her is fake right now. I think you're going to get a devouring mother. I think you're going to get a cold-hearted psychopath. That's my personal feeling with any woman who could be like her and manipulate their way to the top the way she has. No compassion, no compassion for Joe, nothing. Nothing. I mean, I know the guy's corrupt, but if you don't have compassion for a man, or it's fake compassion who has dementia, it's like, come on now. Um, Trump is who he is. He's not faking. So you know what you're going to get. You knew what you're going to get for 4 years. But if Trump gets in, I guarantee you, the swamp is still there. There'll be more chaos because they're going to make sure it happens, no matter what. But at least if Trump gets in, you won't have all this insane taxes and unrealized gain taxes. That some of her talk is crazy. She's denying a lot of stuff. She's going to stop fracking. She's going to stop a lot of things. And we're just not there yet where we have an energy source that can take over for fossil fuels. We're just not. And if they try to stop this stuff too soon, we will have a massive, the poorest of the poor will die first. It's doom and gloom. The price of things will keep going up, and they'll wipe out the middle class, and it will be them at the top and little serfs, just like Russia used to be. Yeah. There'll be 99% serfs and poor peasants crying to their lords for a scrap of food.
Yeah, it definitely seems like there would be a fast track to that dystopian level of reality if she was in office. The answer to it all is going to rely with us and what we do in our individual lives, and again, how we react collectively to the things that are unfolding. And it seems like both sides have this hard on for Israel and would do anything to support it. So that is another concerning aspect, but I think we just need to keep an eye on it and really take care of things in our own lives above everything, and just be aware that there is a lot of misinformation and nonsense going out there right now.
Yeah. Well, just know that George Soros knows this. He knows that you can do a lot of power damage on a smaller level of government, in municipals, in DAs, and stuff like that. So I think people need to start focusing in those smaller levels, not necessarily on the president. It's like, who's our DAs? Who's our local this or that? Who is running for sheriff? You look at those smaller things and what you can affect better. And George Soros knows that. That's why he's paying for DAs and getting in there in the crime. And if you can't clean up crime and you can't have a safe society, you don't have one.
100%.
So politically, you have more power locally than you do on a federal. But we get tied up on the federal because it's such a Super Bowl show. It's so alluring. It's like watching halftime,
Yeah. The theater will continue. We still have a couple of months till the election actually occurs. Anything could happen. It's going to be a very interesting time in human history either way. Melissa, thank you so much for coming on. Is there anything else that we did not cover, anything else that we missed that you'd like to bring up before we close out?
Well, just know that the Belezian Grove women, I'm sure more will come out about them. They're highly secretive, but it's probably just as creepy and crazy as Bohemian Grove, but they are, I think they've learned from what's happened in Bohemian Grove. And in my opinion, the stuff that we see on Bohemian Grove and Belizean Grove, that's not even where all the crazy stuff's happening. It's probably even more secretive than that. And I do believe everything's on an energetic level and on a spiritual level. And because if it wasn't, these people wouldn't be focused on it.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I don't think that they are hiding behind these spiritual beliefs. I think they're very rooted in some sort of very occulted spiritual practice that has been passed down for centuries and most likely used to keep these groups and families in power. It's very interesting. Melissa, thank you so much for coming on. Before we close out, remind the audience once again how they can find out more about you.
Well, go to my website, jenxonx.com. All my links to my podcast are there. I live stream, so on Rumble, YouTube, and X. And then there's the audio podcast that comes out later, and all the links are there. And yeah, the website's the easiest place to go. And follow on Rumble, follow on X.
Excellent. Melissa, thank you so much. We'll definitely be talking again in the future. And until next time, everyone, have a wonderful evening. We will talk again tomorrow. And happy Friday the 13th. Hello, friends. If you or a loved one has been struggling with a chronic or complex health problem and have been disappointed with the level of care available, get in touch with my friend Christian Yordanov. He is a certified functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner and author of 2 books. His first book was on autism and children's health, and he recently published the first volume on his series on longevity, How to Actually Live Longer, Volume 1. He's worked with clients with severe gut problems, toxicity, chronic fatigue, and he's helped people with autoimmune conditions, skin disorders, autism, multiple sclerosis, and folks with various metabolic conditions. He also advises people like myself who are in good health and are looking to keep it that way how to optimize things like cognitive function, exercise recovery, sleep, and much more. Christian works with clients remotely all over the world and uses advanced lab tests to help zero in on specific metabolic imbalances and challenges. The tests are shipped direct to your door. They're collected at home and picked up by a courier. Most doctors don't run these tests routinely because they either haven't been trained on using them, insurance won't cover them, or even both. Convenience for Christian's clients is a priority, so you will be in great hands. When you work with Christian, you'll also be able to chat directly with him in your dedicated client app, where you can access your personalized health protocols. He likes to work closely with his clients to ensure they have the support they need to achieve their health goals. It's like working with a functional practitioner and health coach at the same time. Some of his biggest areas of focus are helping clients mitigate stress and inflammation, improve detoxification and gut health, and optimize nutrition, supplementation, and environment, all based on your specific situation, lab work, lifestyle, and constraints. You can book a free intro call with Christian using the link in the description to see how he can help you restore your health. Make sure you mention FKN in the Where Did You Hear About Us field, and you'll receive bonus sessions, get access to a 13-hour detox workshop, and a copy of his latest book, How to Actually Live Longer, Volume 1, as well as a copy of Volume 2 when it comes out later this year. Also, if you are already in good health, but you want to look under the hood and run some lab work to check for imbalances and maybe improve your supplement program, Christian can also help you with that. Don't wait for something to go wrong before you focus on your health. Click that link in the description right now.